This should be page 31 of 40 in the back.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here on this nice cold day.
It's nice and warm in this room.
Yeah.
Yes.
I tried to change the temperature, but I don't know if I made it better or worse.
I'm not feeling worse.
Just that up a little bit there.
If you all got a fever, knock it off and leave it alone, because my toes are cold.
Okay, the handout that I gave you basically includes the background behind library certification, which I know some of you have heard this a lot in the past, but I know there are new members, and it's always good to get a refresher for those who have heard it. But this basically gives you background information on what the benefits are to Wareham as far as having a certified library goes, the local aid factor, reciprocal services, which allows the library to be part of a sharing network so we can borrow materials from other member libraries across the state, across the United States and beyond at some point, and what the requirements are for Wareham. We have an hours open requirement. We have a certain amount of money that has to be spent on materials. These are all either in the Code of Mass Regulations or part of state law where there is a statute applicable. I've included what that statute is, so if you want to go back and read it. If you want to come to the library, we can help you look them up. And then our municipal appropriation requirement, which is a requirement that is based on past funding of the library. It's what drove the figure on our request. Mr. Sullivan had asked me to submit a library needs budget, which we hadn't done in several years. So that figure of $693,500 is based on what our municipal appropriation requirement would be. It would also include the $30,000 revolving fund that we get on an annual basis, because the actual requirement is like 723 something. I included just our mission and our goals, a few numbers to look at. In FY13, the library was funded at approximately $19.83 per person. This past year, we have $14.93 a person. An idea of how many programs we hold and the type of numbers that go in there. We do have 16,552 people who are active registered borrowers. That field does get purged every couple of years, so it doesn't keep people in the database who haven't been using the library. And a big figure for us that's been growing and growing every year is the amount of computer users that we get. I did include a summary of the state aid program and also our form, our application and compliance form. That basically shows you the worksheet is on page 2 of that form, and it shows you how the MAR is calculated. And it also gives you an idea of how we have to sign off on the hours that we're open and our materials expenditure. And the very last form is a copy of our worksheet that's filled in by the town accountant. This was to apply for a waiver of our not meeting the MAR for FY14. So some bedtime reading, if you get a chance, you could certainly look it over. If you have any questions about it, certainly, contact me, send me an email, call me, stop by. So that's that. But getting to the numbers for next year.
Excuse me, just for a minute, I just want to clarify the importance of why we need to be certified. Because we get state aid.
Right. If that would be the beginning part of the handout, we get local aid.
All
Okay,
right.
so if we're certified, it's not a huge amount of money, but to the library it is, because it's basically funding our library substitutes, which cover for lunches and when people are out on vacation. We only have 5 staff members that run a 22,000 square foot building. So in order for them to go to lunch and to take some vacation days and personal days, we have to pull people in, and that's the money that funds that. We have no other access to that. Reciprocal services is into the borrowing. So if the library wasn't certified, it's up to each individual city and town. They would have to vote as to whether they would continue to serve the residents of Wareham. You could go into any library in the Commonwealth, the doors wouldn't be barred. But if you live in Wareham and the library isn't certified, you wouldn't be able to borrow any materials if Wareham, Marion or Bourne or neighboring libraries decided to vote to not lend. And the majority of people do vote to not lend because we're in a consortium where it's based on people putting enough money into their system so they share back. And basically it would take the amount of items to, people in the town would have access to like 100,000 or so items as opposed to millions of items that are available to them now by placing them on hold through the system. So it really is a major component of what certification gets for us. And there is one piece that I didn't mention is grants. We're looking at applying for a STEAM grant, which can be a whole other 20-minute conversation, but it's geared towards preschoolers, and it will allow the library to bring in some programming for the younger set, which is part of our goal, but we wouldn't even be able to apply for that grant if we don't remain certified. So it affects money in other ways. So did that answer that
Thank
question?
you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay. As far as library personnel, like I mentioned, we have 5 staff members. I'm going to talk about the more realistic $406,354 budget. We wanted to put forward the MAR one so that it is out there and living on the table. The personnel lines all include a 2% increase as directed by Mr. Sullivan. It's myself. We also have a head of reference in adult services that works 40 hours a week. This position was more reference, but the person we were lucky to get last March lives in town and has a really strong, not only library background, but an IT background. So it's interesting that this follows up on the back of Matt's presentation, because when I first started here over 3 years ago, we relied on the IT department in Town Hall a lot more than we do today, which really was very difficult because he's split in so many directions now. This has helped out immensely because this person has the background and the skills to not only keep all our computers up and running, because some of them are getting older, but also to help out a lot with the public who come in and ask a lot of questions about, how to use email and find information and do taxes. And the people who come to us for computer use, maybe 85% of them, not only need the computer, but they need the assistance with the computer. And I think that's what people don't always understand. I mean, it's fine if we're open and the computers are there, but most of these people all need someone to help them and to guide them. They're not just there because I don't happen to have a computer at home and I'm using your sources. And we have some of that too. So that's a key component. The senior librarians, one of them is our children's librarian, Mrs. Hickey, who's been with us for a long time, does story times and does all of the programming for the younger set. And the other senior librarian is what we call our technical services librarian, who processes all the materials, orders all the books, gets them into the collection, assigns them call numbers, and does all our processing work. The library assistant is our one sole full-time person that we have to run the front desk. So people have asked, in this past year we haven't had all of our salaries fully funded, and thank goodness we had the Library Foundation and Friends step up to supplement our salaries budget, because these are all key positions. I mean, at this point in time, if we had to lose any of them, we would be making a decision at the level of, do we provide computer services to the residents or children's services? There is nobody else to take off the table. And I certainly wouldn't want to be part of that discussion, because I don't know how one would decide that type of thing. There is such a strong need at both of those levels. We're the only place where kids come before they go to school, you know, to learn what books are all about and that social interaction and those skills that make, you know, all the difference going forward. The library substitute line is the state aid money that we talked about that fills in, and it gives us some subs to have a little wiggle room and keep our hours requirement. As far as expenses go, when I met with Mr. Sullivan, I did misspeak. I did say that this budget didn't cover any of Spinney, but since we lifted it from the main budget, this does include the utilities for the Spinney branch. It doesn't include any of the personnel, but it will include. So it's a small increase. That's why you see the increase from FY14. It's a small increase. The library, the branch is small. The utilities are not expensive. This is our second year, so we have a pretty good handle on exactly what the cost is. The Friends had committed to do operating for 2 years. This will be going into the third year. It's been very cost effective. We do have money left in the gift account from the Friends, and I believe they have some more money that they can put towards branch services. So, but maybe this would be a step in the right direction, and at least including, maybe it happened for a reason. But anyhow, that's where you see the small increase to the electricity line, the gas line, and the water sewer, and our alarms, because we do have a maintenance alarm system for the branch as well as the main library. Sales, the other purchase services sales, this is where some people get confused. They think that if we lose certification, we lose sales. That's not true. We contract with sales. As long as we pay them our annual fee, we are still a member. And we would have to retain that even if we weren't doing reciprocal borrowing, because it's our catalog, it's where you look up a book, it's where all those book records live, it's our database of all our patrons, and it also is our circulation system that covers, you know, when you check out a book, whether it's from Wareham or some other library. So just to make that perfectly clear, I mean, sales to us is like a utility. We can't live without it. If you wanted to say, oh, let's save that money and not have it, you'd have to come up with your own in-house system that would probably cost you twice as much money, and you would have a buyout too. I mean, because those records that they hold don't technically belong to us. We would have to purchase them from them, so it could get really messy. The data processing, the $500, is in there to help with buying scanners and things that break at the circulation desk. It covers basically a couple of scanners throughout the year because they don't last forever. Book subscriptions is at $26,000. For this level of budget, that's probably a little less than 50% of what the requirement is. The Library Foundation and Friends in our gift account and grants usually make up the difference. Rental lease equipment is for 2 copiers. One is a staff copier and one is a public copier. The lease on the staff copier is up in the spring, so we would be looking to renegotiate that at some point. Dues membership travel is for memberships and things like the American Library Association, the Public Library Association, for people to kind of keep up, and then in-state travel to any of the workshops, and we have monthly network meetings and that type of thing and we get a vote there, so we basically want to make sure we have representation so they can vote for the town interest. So, questions?
Who wants to start first? Okay.
How many days is the library open now?
The main library is open 25 hours a week, 3 days, and the branch is open alternating days, another 25 hours. So we're open 50 hours right now between the 2 facilities.
And this is the budget for those.
Please turn on the mic.
I'm sorry, Bob.
This is the budget that would include not staffing for Spinney, but the utilities. We haven't been paying utilities through the town side as of yet, so. And a part of the reasoning of altering the hours is with the minimum staff that we have, is at the Spinney Library we can operate with one person. It's only 1,900 square feet as opposed to the main library that's 22,000 square feet. So to operate that, what we've been doing is having one staff person and someone goes and covers a lunch, or we have two people split a shift. So, you know, cost-wise, it's a lot less expensive, obviously, to staff. It doesn't have the same amount of computers or access, no, but it's the best we could do with what we had.
Okay, because you stated that the, one of the head of reference and adult services was working 40 hours?
Yeah, all of the people, bless you.
Thank you.
All of the people listed are either 40 or 37 and a half. They're all full-time
Do
positions.
they do that in a 3-2 split?
They don't all work at the branch. Right now, the staff at the branch is one of our substitutes that's paid through the Friends. So it's not our full-time people that are there. They do go out there to cover for lunch, or they, you know, like our head of reference will go out to do computer troubleshooting and that type of thing. Our children's librarian goes out and does a story time on Wednesday mornings. We have someone that's working through the schools that does some grant programming, who do some programming also at Spinney. Head Start visits, but we have volunteers who come in for that. So not all of the services that you see that are direct to the public get paid through the town money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Denise, I'm a little bit confused. You said that...
That's my role.
No. You said that we're open 3 days a week at the main library and alternate days at Spinney.
Right, we're open, Spinney is open Mondays from 9 to 6. The main library is open from 9 to 6 on Tuesday. Spinney's open on 9 to 6 on Wednesday. Thursday, the main library is open 9 to 6, so we have those 4 days from 9 to 6. Friday, the main library is closed and Spinney's open 9 to 4, and on Saturday, the main library is open from 9 to 4. So the hours are staggered between the two.
All right, and yet the staffing that you have here, you said does not include the staffing for Spinney in the coming year?
Right.
Yeah, I'm confused too.
So that means
Just for
that,
lunch and stuff like that.
Right, the substitutes would do lunch. We're still looking at having the Friends gift account support staffing at Spinney for FY15. Because they have the money to do so.
They have
So
the
we
money
did
to
not-
do so.
We didn't include it as part of this budget.
but with this budget and the money coming from the Friends, you have sufficient funds to staff both library buildings.
We have money, the only money from the Friends for staffing is the 19-hour position at the Spinney Library. That's not included here. And this budget covers the 5 people that we currently have on staff at the main library.
All right, so even if the library is closed, the main library is closed, you still have staff working at the library.
Right, yes. We have people right now working extra hours on the 3 days, because when we're open from 9 to 6, people are coming in at 8, because we have book drop. They have a holds list to run that pulls all the books people have requested to get into delivery. They have overdue items to deal with and notices to send out, all those behind-the-scene things that, you know, people don't know about but still have to get done. So people basically on the long days are working from 8 until 6:30. And on the days that we're closed, they'll sometimes, if they have to cover lunch at Spinney or do some work on the computers, they all have plenty of things to do. The children's librarian has to plan all her children's programming, because basically what happens is on the days that we're not open to the public, that's the one time they have off the desk. The days they were open to the public, people are straight out when they have no time to do any of that back background things. So basically, by consolidating it that way, we're still giving people an opportunity to get some of that. You know, these children's programs don't present themselves. Anybody who's done programming before, it takes a lot of work behind it, and then the day that we're open is when the program actually happens. But the background things, I mean, we certainly could walk you through and show you everything that has to get done. We have things like the virtual catalog books. That's anything that gets requested beyond the sales catalog. They all get processed in a special way. They don't just go through the regular, and that it's all things that take time. So,
Jeff?
So do I, just so I get this correctly then, so there's some people that are employed that are not showing up on this page here, on the budget?
the only person that doesn't show is the Spinney Library staff.
Okay, the staff, so I don't know how many people.
One.
There's only one.
It's one person.
Now, is that person a town employee?
Yes.
How do we figure that? You know, I'm kind of concerned that, is there another budget out here, or is it?
They're paid through a gift account, a Spinney gift account. We established 2 years ago through the town accountant, all separate accounts for Spinney, because it was accepted by the town, but it came with 2 years' worth of operating expenses. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to keep them totally separate. So we have Spinney gift accounts for electricity, for gas, for all of our line items that we use to pay Spinney bills, including salaries. And the salaries for the person who works at the branch gets paid out of that Spinney gift line. What's happening in FY15, the shift that's happening with these budgets, is that staff member will still get paid through a Spinney gift account, but the utilities will start to get paid through the regular town accounts.
So Jeff, if I can clarify, is that 18,000 that we're looking at for other funding?
No, that 18,000 is the state aid money we use to staff.
All right, so we're not seeing that
substitutes.
number on
You're
here
not
at all?
seeing that at all, no, because the town's not paying for it.
Okay.
Just want to clarify that, just to make sure, we're talking salary, we're not talking the benefits or any of the
It's a
insurance.
part-time position, so
Okay.
it's not
Just want to make sure there was
benefited.
nothing included in that.
And the other money that lives out there, too, that isn't showing is there is a gift account for Spinney books and materials that can offset our requirement, but it's also not showing on the town side because that all of the books and materials we buy from Spinney comes out of that account, and there's still money in there for FY15, too. So.
I'm just not sure if it wouldn't be better to find a way to show it and, no?
Because we're not really truly funding that, but it is.
It's a requirement.
Is there any liability in the fact that let's say that person is paid at a different rate than the rest of the town employees, just theoretically. Does that cause problems with our administration?
How many hours is the person?
19. And they're not paid at a different rate, they're paid at the same rate.
So are they part of the lower steelworker, or are they?
No, they're not unionized at
Yeah.
all.
So
Well,
we'd
subs
be-
aren't either.
We'd be fine then.
Yeah.
Bonnie?
I think what you guys are looking at, I mean, at some point, this is all gonna be the town's responsibility, you know, whether the Friends keep up or whatever the story is. And I think that, you know, you have to file this report with the state, so certainly any citizen of this town can go and look at these numbers themselves and know what the real cost of this entire operation is. They know that. But to really keep a historical tracking in the next few years until we own it all, I mean, we're gonna have that responsibility one way or the other. I was not an advocate of taking Spinney. I'm not ashamed to say that. I looked at it as a financial situation, and I still say to myself, I don't know what the long-term benefit is of having this extra branch. I feel almost like you got that, but you lost a little bit over here to make up for having to support Spinney, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I think the savings grace for us has been, we could never, the state requirement is 50 hours. And in the position we're in now, we could never do 50 hours at the main library. So in a way, ironically, the branch became the saving grace for our certification because it allows us to maintain 50 hours of library service because we can count the branch hours as long as they're not overlapping with the main library. I mean, is it the best case scenario? I don't know. It's what was handed to us, and we're doing the best we can with what we got. But dollar for dollar, if you're just looking at the money without looking at the service, it is a decent way of saving money on library services and providing, you're still getting certified because you have those 50 hours, but in the dollar per hour value is a lot easier to do at a branch than it is at the main library.
I understand that, but, you know, eventually, you're going to have to do both.
Right.
And I'm just, you know, wondering, I mean, I adore the fact that, you know, the Friends are so dedicated to what they do, and they haven't given up. But, you know, how long can we rely on that? And I look at some of the other issues of, you know, what's the importance of, you know, having 28 computers in the town. And then you've got, it says meeting rooms, 549 times. Do we charge these groups that use these meeting rooms at all?
No, most of them are all nonprofits.
All nonprofit organizations?
We do have, you know, a lot of people that use the meeting space that are nonprofits who do give to our gift account on a regular basis.
Well, that's,
so,
I'm sure they should.
And I'm probably going to wrap this up because this town has debated libraries above and beyond anything that anyone wants to revisit. And maybe because I was the most passionate supporter of the library, it comes very difficult for me to say this, but maybe it's more palatable if it comes from me. Bonnie, we're looking at the reality of this town not even be able to afford any library. I mean, I'm looking at numbers here of a $2.8 million deficit. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only, I'm sorry, frustration's getting up here, but we could cut the entire library program, and that is a drop in the bucket for the money that we're looking at. So no disrespect intended. I think the Board of Selectmen, who are not here, again, to listen to me say this, because I think the library is a huge need in this community. We don't have libraries in our schools. The people that are using those computers need those computers. There's no other way for them to access them. But that's up to the town meeting and the administration to find a way to verbalize that we need that, because I don't know where the funding's coming from, and it will break my heart to not be able to fully fund this library. There, that's my political speech of the day. Mr. McDonald, you better take over for a while.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to try not to go political. As you know, I was on the library board before I came here, and I've always been a lifelong library supporter, but I too see the large, I don't know if it's 2.8, I think it went up to 2.5, but the extra 3
I don't know.
might be out there somewhere at this point.
Anything beyond $2 million is too much.
At this point, with a $2.5 million deficit, we're going to be left with 2 options. And we don't want to get into those options today, but those are the options we're faced with as a town. We either have to, and we don't make that decision, neither do the Board of Selectmen, really. The people that make that decision are the people that vote. Those are the ones that end up making the decision ultimately. And so what we have to do, though, as a Finance Committee is advise. So we have to take all the information, which we're getting today, and then we'll go back, we'll have our meetings, and we'll advise. We'll advise the town meeting, we'll advise whoever wants to listen to us what we think is best for the town. And that's where we're going to have to go. And again, if it comes down to it and the general consensus is that they don't want us to spend any more money, therefore we'll cut the 2.5, then you're likely going to see some pretty devastating cuts in this town. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's a real thing that we're looking at. So, and no more political speeches because we're going to get behind, and then I'll get on a roller.
Thank you.
Mr. Foster, the Finance Director, representing the Office of the Combined Treasurer Collector.
You going to do accounting too?
Which I don't think she's still here. Yeah, she's still not in, so. Mr. Foster's office brings in roughly $32 million a year when you attribute the taxes. And he and his staff do have the pleasure of, when people come to pay their taxes, they hear some pretty nice words, so.
Thank you.
If you'd like to go over the budget and just start, and we have some new members as well, so just some background on the office would be great, too.
Okay, sure. The office has recently gone through some changes, mainly being my position. My position is now Finance Director, Treasurer, Collector. And if we go through these line items, you'll notice a variance in salary for that position. I used to be a grade 12, level 5, which would have been a level 6 this year. Currently, I'm a level 4, or a step 4, grade 14. We have an assistant treasurer collector who's certified both as a treasurer and a collector, grade 7, step 6. And then we have 3 full-time clerks, and they're all grade 3. 2 are step 7s, they're 15-year employees, and 1 step 6, a 10-year employee. And we recently hired a part-time, non-benefit person for 15 hours a week to replace a full-time 37.5-hour week employee. The expenses, I have an itemized list going down. The first line item, repairs, maintenance, and office equipment, is a copier lease. That's all it is. It's $1,050 a year to maintain that copier. Payroll processing is by contract. That's with Harper's Payroll. It's the second year of a 3-year contract.
Is that for the entire town?
Town and school, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Land court fees, currently we have budgeted 20 new petitions. The petitions are $590 per petition to enter those into land court. It's approximately 24 cases in land court right now. We have over 200 tax title accounts in the hands of the attorneys currently. 1 large subdivision and probably another 100 parcels, random parcels. The Plymouth County recording fees, those are new liens. Those are $77. It might have gone up, actually. I think it's still $77, but that's approximately 180 new accounts each year get entered into tax title. Under printing and mailing, printing forms and envelopes, we could save a couple $1,000s. I've heard this recently from several people, and they've gone to the administrator's office. We include 2 return envelopes with our lockbox post office box address on those envelopes. Several years ago, I did try to eliminate those envelopes. I went down to 1 envelope to see how it went, and a lot of our mail was getting sent to other towns. It wasn't being sent to our lockbox, which is Citizens Bank. They were going all over the place, and people were having problems with getting their mail to Town Hall. And those envelopes cost 3 cents a piece. We could save $2,000 by eliminating those if we had to, but right now it's safer just to stay with those. Office supplies, that includes paper, toner, ink, and other miscellaneous items. We use that each year. Advertising, that's the cost to advertise tax title and tailings. That's required by law. The employee bonds, also required for both the treasurer collector and the assistant treasurer collector. The travel and conferences is for 1 person only. That's for the assistant. That's to go to UMass Amherst, the summer school. Mileage is for all courses, seminars, bank runs, miscellaneous travel. And dues and membership, that's just for state and county. The total expense is $93,650. The total budget, $385,073, which is down slightly from last year, which was $389,557. I also just wanted to state one other thing. We're down to 5.4 full-time employees, 5.4, being the lowest that it's been since I've been in that office. When I originally took over that office, they had 7 full-time employees and 2 part-time positions. So that's all I have to say on that budget, if you want to go over it.
This is probably a peanut. How frequently do you pay? How
Pay-
frequently do you pay? Weekly, bi-weekly?
For the employees?
Yes.
Yes, we pay weekly. The school has bi-weekly employees and weekly employees.
So if we went to bi-weekly, do we
You would save some money, yes.
So right now, we have it in all of our contracts on the town side. We would need the schools to have moved to biweekly as well to really implement it and yield the savings.
And I've also contacted Harper's Payroll, and I did have a representative call me back. I returned the call the day before the snowstorm, and we still haven't connected. We're also looking at the cost savings for online checking. You could there would be no paper checks. We're trying to get away from paperless billing on the town side for real estate bills, and motor vehicle excise, and personal property, and all that.
But you're charging $250, right, to do that?
$250 for it.
Isn't there a charge if somebody
There's
does
no
that?
charge.
No charge, okay.
No, the town saved the postage and the stamps, but you can go online right now. Taxpayers can go online now and opt into paperless billing, and you'll receive, we didn't have this in the past, this is brand new.
Okay.
You can go online, opt into paperless billing, instead of receiving a hard copy in an envelope and the 2 additional return envelopes, you would just get a notification in your email box to go to our website, and then you could print the bill if you want, or just look at it, view it. It's the exact same bill. It's a PDF file from our billing company. So you can opt into that. That would save the town some money.
Can you opt in to pay it at the same time?
You can opt in to pay it. You can have automatic payment. You can schedule it for the day the bill's due, have it taken right off your checking and savings account, 40-cent fee for that, less than the cost of a stamp. You can also use your credit cards. That's a 2.95% fee to the taxpayer. So if you want to use a credit card, you pay a fee. If you want to use your checking or savings, you pay 40 cents. We've had that for quite a while. The new thing is the actual copy of the bill is online. So you can see the actual physical copy of your bill, and you don't need to receive a paper bill, hard copy bill from us.
Any other questions?
What do you have for collectible, non-collectible over the years? Do you have a schedule for that?
Yeah, receivables. We're required to file that with the state. And we collect for real estate, personal property, by the end of June 30th in the bill that you're in, the current fiscal year, we collect about 97%. The rest goes on to tax title. It's either they're already in tax title and they just lean to tax title, or you have the 180 new accounts that we have to advertise for and go through the whole process, and they get added to tax title. We probably have the same number of those accounts paying off during the fiscal year. And we're doing pretty well this year, but we collect about $500,000 in tax title. So when you're doing your budgeting, and we just recently went through this, the state doesn't allow you to budget tax title. But on the other side, we're budgeting 100% of our real estate and personal property tax revenue. We collect 97% by the end of the fiscal year. Difference, $300,000-$400,000. Over the fiscal year, we'll collect that in tax title. So that's why you're not allowed to budget that. You still collect it, but it's in a different category. Instead of being in real and personal property, it then gets moved over to tax title. So that's how that balances out.
And you'd only change that if you had a major default or something like that, that you would, I can't think of you'd have to have a huge taxpayer default.
Yeah, we have over 600 accounts in tax title.
Mm-hmm.
We're foreclosing on more and more properties each year. We have an auction scheduled, it will be scheduled for late March, early April. And that should bring in, I don't know if I want to say this or not, but about $300,000 or $400,000 depending on the bids that we receive.
When can we spend that?
I think it's,
Actually, we will need it for the cost of the reval next year and
Yeah.
going forward on those operations.
How do you recognize that revenue?
you don't right now. You can't
I know,
estimate.
but when it does come in, is it recognized at the point that it comes in?
As soon as the money's in the bank.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure, because
Right.
again, that could be a,
And the other problem is, when you go out to bid, we've had this happen before, we'll request a $5,000 bid deposit. They have to bring in a certified check for $5,000 or $10,000 if it's a house, and they can default on it and just walk away. And we've had people do that. We have a property that's coming back for auction now that they defaulted on it, and we collected we received their $5,000, but we didn't get the $100,000 they bid on the property. So
get
until
to
the
keep
money's
the
actually,
five.
until the money's actually collected, we don't consider it.
Well, you want a certain amount of non-payment so that you can get the fee revenue, don't you?
Yeah, that's not, no, actually, we don't, because it makes it hard to budget. We're not allowed to budget the tax title and interest. We receive $100,000 in interest on those tax title accounts. You can't budget it. You can't estimate it.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that.
Yeah. But it's,
It adds to free cash.
the interest rate's 16% every year. Around this time, when we're speaking to the finance committee or on TV, we try to tell people, if you owe us $10,000, $8,000, or whatever, you're better off if you can get some other type of loan, a home equity loan, whatever type of loan you can apply for. You're not paying 14 or 16% interest. You're paying us 16%. So if you can get an 8% loan somewhere else, you're doing the town a favor and you're doing yourself a favor. Go and refinance. Go get some money and pay that off, because you're paying us 16% interest.
And before I take it too far off track, the properties that are before they're sent off to auction,
Yep.
they could be a tax title, but before they go to auction,
Yep.
are they, do all departments look and see if they need or have a use for any of that, conservation?
Yeah, we have done that in the past. We have a list that goes around. We notify the Board of Selectmen. These properties that I'm talking about right for March and April, those are the whole process is, you'll owe the town taxes, and at the end of the fiscal year, you'll go into tax title. From tax title, it takes a while, because we go on the high dollar amounts, so it's in the attorney's hands, it's $8,000 or more right now. If you get to the point you owe us $8,000, chances are you're going to get a letter from our attorneys. Beyond that, we'll select certain properties, because we only have $13,860, and that's not it, $11,800 for new petitions. We'll select 20 new accounts each year.
Yep.
They'll go to land court. They'll sit in land court for 6 months to a year. The large subdivision that we have right now in land court has been in land court for over a year. It's approaching 2 years. So it depends. Then we'll get a final decree. We'll get a final judgment from land court. From that, in past years, we've had to wait up to a year before we can auction those properties off. So we're not now. We're pushing to auction them off as soon as we take possession of them. But it takes a long time before you can foreclose on someone's property. We do have a very nice property that's in it. The property had 2 loans on the property. Neither one of the loans want to pay the other one off, so we own it. And the other ones are abandoned properties, abandoned
And
homes.
is there some protection that a shark can't come in and pay the taxes and walk away with the deed?
They've attempted to. What they have to do is contact the owner. If we take possession of them, you wait for the public auction, and then you can be the highest bidder, and you can purchase the property from the town.
Thanks.
A few years ago, if you remember, there was a bit of a push to sell off, I think, all of our tax title receivables. And that's, would have been nice for essentially 1 year, but I like the way we've been going on this, and we're using it in a proper manner. Right now, when we've been doing those sales, it's been going to a sale of real estate account, which may not be the right way to do it. The only good thing about it is it holds it from the general fund, and we've been able to use that for things like this year, getting the extra money for the revaluation and things such as that. So I think we're going to have to look into how we're going to deposit those monies. But
Yeah.
tell your friends we've got properties.
And on the receivable side, those companies that want to come in, they usually want to cherry pick. They want to pick properties of higher value
Yeah.
with lower taxes. And then they'll either go after you right away and try to get you to, try to get your property, or they'll let it sit and collect they now get the interest. The town gets paid up to that point, and then they get all the interest going forward. So they're going to do one of 2 things. They're going to let it sit and let it build money for them, or they're going to force you out of your property. Right now, the town's handling it.
Yeah, we met with those people a couple of years ago, and they seemed really great. The idea, the principle sounded really good to me.
Yeah, it's one-time money.
Yeah, but they did contact me personally soon after that. I never said anything about it, but it was kind of, because I knew of several properties in town, and I got contacted personally, like wanting the grand tour, and I really felt a little uncomfortable with that, so I kind of passed on it.
Well, the funny thing is, they sell it as, we'll pay you off, we'll pay the $3 million or $2 million, give you a check that date, and we'll pay all of those off. We still maintain the lien. The people still come to the town of Wareham to argue, what just happened to me? I just received a letter from this collection company. It's not like the town's out of the picture. If you were selling your receivables and that was the end of it, that would be great. No more work for me.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? It's off the books. But that's not how it actually is.
Yeah.
Yep, all right.
All
Is that
right,
it?
and now we've got the Elsa Miller, the Director of Assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And before Ms. Miller starts, you remember I've talked about the reval account. You'll notice we have not put anything in there for the FY15 budget. Yeah, so we're going to have to fund that, but we're going to have to pull, when we sell those properties, that's where we're going to have to use a good portion of those monies. So,
Would it be appropriate to talk about the growth before we talk about the actual expenses in the department?
yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear
Is
from
that
you.
okay with you if you wanted to do that?
Sure.
'Cause
Do you
we-
have certain questions that you
Well,
wanted to
I
ask
do
about the
because,
growth?
I do because I look at the growth for 14, and then I, see the projected at 433, and then I see the requested at 350, and, has it gone up that much from over 2013, and can we pinpoint a little bit to where that growth is coming from?
Yeah, so if you
Where am I?
FY13,
Oh, here we
our
are. I'm
actual was
sorry.
248,635. This year we had the increase.
Okay,
with
those
Börse
were
and
mine.
stuff.
Okay.
I'm just asking because, there's an increase in growth, and,
Growth is really unpredictable.
right, that's my question.
And I think one of the reasons, let's start with the one that sticks out the most, is FY14, where we had that increase. And we had a solar plant built up on Makepeace land who is leasing and selling their power to the grid. So we were able to fully tax them, as opposed to some of the other, it's a long story as to but we can fully tax them. And there were several methods that the state had approved for which ways we could assess them. And they had provided me with their cost figures, where they would be assessed as personal property. And I chose to use another method that was put out by the state, which is actually their income based on what they could sell their SRECs for. At that time, the state still had a program in where they were buying or subsidizing them. They wanted a pilot, and myself, Derek, and John, actually, I didn't feel it was in the best interest for the town, because we were able to get, I think it was 17,000 in growth from just the Borrego solar farm up on Makepeace land all the way up north, and it's a 42-acre one. Most towns where we didn't selected pilots, which wouldn't give them the growth, but gave them income each year. We're still going to get the income each year, and I'm very, very confident that we can handle just typical depreciation. And also, if we get their income sheets, I think they're going to be producing a fair amount of income. Growth is directly tied to the amount of new construction you see, and or additions. That's where you get the largest chunk. The state sets the utility growth, which is considered personal property, and they give us those figures, and that's the other section. If I had a pie chart, that would be the larger part, as opposed to a house being built. But if a house is built, we go out, we list it, it's part of the permitting process, it's part of some of the money we need to operate, and it's added. Each one has to be lined item for the state, and then
totaled at the end, and this year we were able to come up with that 433,000 in actual growth between new construction, foundations in, there were a couple of new industrial buildings started up on 28, even by picking up decks. Little by little, it all adds up. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but going forward, that 350 is very reasonable. My big question is when Walmart's going to drop their foundation. The minute they drop their foundation, that land value changes, potentially, it's on a lease, but, and then that foundation, then we start building revenue from them. But we do have quite a bit going on there at Makepeace. There's been other new developments along where Walmart will be going out, of some medical businesses going in. So, and then our new home construction is a little off. I'm sorry.
So basically what you're saying is that this is a conservative number, this 350. I guess what I'm asking.
If Walmart gets in the ground.
If Walmart gets.
Before July
Okay.
1.
Okay.
I'd say that's a little conservative.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
I would say that, the solar plant's going to drop a little bit. But I think that we should be able to attain that.
One thing about new growth is you always want to remember, you don't want to miss picking it up because that's compounding into the future, growing by the 2.5% every year. So if you miss it and you start missing for multiple years, you've actually, it's almost like missing out the first few years of investing, and you can see how the growth would be different on there. So I'm sure Ms. Miller will go over some of the changes you'll see in the department, and we're trying to pick up as much new growth as possible to help the town.
Okay. What am I supposed to explain now?
Well, you did a nice handout here.
Oh,
Would you
the
like to go
handout,
over it?
yes. One of the questions that I was asked to list out, which is very, basically the assessing department, everything is tied to the Department of Revenue via the Divisional Local Services. 99%, and I started to quote each law and thought you'd get kind of bored, so I just listed 99% of what my department does is overseen, checked, or mandated by the Mass General Law 59 and 60. And if we look down, one of the major things we do is a commitment of real estate and real property and personal property. Then into forms of lists, we mail out to the business owners to collect what they have in their buildings that we can tax as personal property. 3 of ABCs, we have to mail out and be taken in and then researched to make sure they qualify as a charitable organization. These are done every year. Income and operating statements, this year we tried something new that is a law or in the laws that says we can fine, if they do not return an income and operating statement that is complete, we could fine the larger, the 3 and 400s, large commercial, large industrial, $250, and the smaller multiplexes that are like 30 and 40 units, they're called 111s, $50. And we were able to collect, which is no way can they abate it, to $30,600 in funds for delinquent filing of the income and operating statements. Those are very important to find values and put into our database to determine what Wareham's base is and what Wareham's market rent is and what Wareham expenses are. So you can bring it down to actually relate to this town with what they're getting for rents, what they're getting for operating expenses, what is required, and then value the property through the income approach. So the information on those is very important. Some companies are very resistant to giving you anything, and those companies were penalized. That is a state law. Sales questionnaires, we mail out to find out and verify sales. We also inspect, I do, all sales that occur so that we can get good, clean data to know what triggered that sale to sell for what it did, so we can get equitable values and get certified. Chapter land, I'm working on a new phase of trying to go through chapter land more carefully and bring us up to meeting all the requirements that the chapter land owners are supposed to hand in, so that potentially we may have some go back onto the tax rolls, or vice versa. Building permits tied directly to that not forms of list, but growth. We have a system where now I can go in and pull my building permits directly from an online system that was brought in the building department. A clerk puts it onto the card gets printed, so on and so forth. Then we have data collectors go out and collect building permits, which go on a sheet that then generates our growth. The LA 13 is a very extensive form. It's part of finalizing our year, but we have to support every single bit of growth. I think that is a recall for some of you who've been around for a while with growth. I have to have a card and data that actually shows it truly exists on a on records and cards and visits, and then it can go on to the growth sheet. Maps, I'd like to come back to commercial and industrial area. Abatements, we handle all the abatements. That's a law too, that people have a right to file against their values. I inspect all abatements, and then the board meets and decides whether they have a reason or not. We have to go to the appellate tax board. They have the right to appeal it to a court in Boston called the appellate tax board. It actually functions like a court with a commissioner, judge, and so forth. We collect boat and motor vehicle and excise, and then betterments, both water and sewer, and that's a very time-consuming thing, the betterments, both water and sewer. Now, if we come back to the maps and neighborhood maps, this is something that Derek and John and I will be working on so we can get a really great star for certification. The state requires us to have maps that indicate by color the neighborhoods in town. The neighborhoods are what your land value is. And the land values, it all is derived from sales. But we're very, very close to being able to implement GIS that will make this painless. This town has not had neighborhood maps due to the inability to actually get going on something. And right now the state is offering some free help. They've spent over $30,000 for Wareham on getting our base maps, what they call level 3, up to standards. And now they're offering to help us get other layers put in. And then I'm working with our vendor to see what they can do to help us merge it and get it ongoing. It'll be a very useful thing, and one of the things, we've cut the assistant assessor data collector out of the office. First we went to part-time, and now we've totally removed them. We have found that using contractors, it's much more thorough. You can control the time of year that you actually need them, so they're not, the employee doesn't have the downtime. You have that contractor there. We were very lucky to acquire a contractor that is very well thought of at the Department of Revenue and is very thorough. He does our building permits. He will do the cyclical, which is just checking areas of towns, which is another state mandate, and so forth. Then we have a second vendor who does our personal property. Personal property is its thing of its own vintage, and we actually have had a personal property vendor for many years. But what we gained with not having a full-time assistant is the ability to cut that down. I think that total salary by now would probably be, if we had had somebody the years I was here, would be up in the 50s. And it's gone, and we are able to replace it with a data collector at 11.5. And then the maps, to get them fully done, would fall under me again and would be around 3,000. So I think the assessor's budget's been the one that's been going, as well as I'm sure the library too, but we've been able to kind of streamline I know John started out with what he had for employees. We have me, who is the director, We have the vacant, which the town can decide as we go along as to what's better. We have eliminated the vacant. Office manager who, I don't know what, she's a level 6 A. Well, she handles a tremendous amount of work in the office. And then the 3 department assistants, which are at the top of their grade level at, and then the one for longevity, that's Barbara LaFavor. Coming down, repairs and maintenance is also inclusive of our lease. We have 1 printer copier, which is on a lease. The professional is the 2 that I spoke about, our yearly personal property vendor, who collects visits all the businesses, collects any new personal property. He charges on a typical year $11,000. He typically picks up around $15,000 in new growth by going into the businesses. And that 31 includes permit, which can be anywhere between 11 and 13,000. It's another variable you don't know. And we do have a little bit of catch-up since we haven't had some staff to go out in the field as frequently as we like. Mileage would be, for me, I have to review, I have to go out on abatements, and then the dues and memberships and travels and conferences are on each individual to keep standards, to keep whatever standard they need.
Any questions?
So,
Just open up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie?
I just wanted a little clarification, if it's not too difficult. What is the purpose of this maps and neighborhood maps? What is the purpose of those?
the assessor's office is required to keep a set of maps of the town parcels, all parcels, not just the town parcels, of all the parcels within town. That's just a basic set of maps, and they're to be updated every time, once a year. People who split their property and create two lots, people that combine, a subdivision that goes in, all that information is coming to us from the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. Mm-hmm. And it's the assessor's department's responsibility to keep the maps updated. The background behind that real quickly is if you don't know what you have, you can't value it. Every time there's a split, we pick up money,
right,
or potentially pick up revenue from that being split. Or a subdivision goes in, even if they haven't built one house, it still changes the value. And that has to be on our map so somebody could find it or locate it. Neighborhoods are derived from sales. You may have a waterfront neighborhood. You may have different values in Onset than you do out on Bourne Point than you do on Swift's Beach. So the neighborhoods are important to realize where they are because they can shift depending on something detrimental impacting the neighborhood or vice versa, a new subdivision coming in. But you have to be able to identify a market area, let's put it that way. Where are buyers buying, what are they paying, and how much are they paying and why? And by that, you create your neighborhood maps, and they're on your property record card, but they help us to see where the changes come.
So this neighborhood.
It's like colored.
Yeah, that's why I don't know what the purpose is of this. So if a buyer comes in and says, I want to buy a house between $250,000 and $300,000, you can look and say, I just don't understand what the purpose of it is and who decides what value is what neighborhood. You do.
We do, yeah.
This is after the fact, after they've already valued the properties.
Yeah.
The state will come in and they'll actually go through your maps. And they want to see everything color coordinated, so they'll check to see if you're valuing this person at a neighborhood 50 and this one at a 70 right next door to it. So they just look at the colors, and you can actually sit there and color in the maps, but it's more of a verification of how you're valuing the property.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Sometimes you know something, can't answer it.
Tom?
How are you handling the FEMA?
We're not. We have had probably 10 inquiries and several very angry people that we can't reduce their values because of their insurance. Until we have sales, and this is how I explain it to, first of all, they need to recheck that they're really in the right. They need to get the right certification of their FEMA. Because if an insurance company is telling them it's a certain X, Y, and Z or elevation, I met with some of the building department people. That may not be correct. So number one, they need to do that. Until we have sales that show that all of a sudden an area that changed to high velocity is decreasing, we can't do anything with the values. You have to be able to support why you think that flood increase on your insurance is going to impact your sale price. If somebody pays cash, they don't have to buy flood insurance. If somebody has a mortgage for $10,000, their house is worth $600,000, they are not required to carry. So it really is impacting mostly the ones that have mortgages. And if they're carrying high mortgages.
I understand all of that.
You do?
I just was wondering how you were going to.
Sales. When we start to have sales.
Only a sale.
Only a sale.
You can't go and have an appraiser come in and say, okay, what is the value of this?
They would have to
property?
have sales to compare, and say, this isn't on, this one doesn't have flood insurance, this one does. It has the same amenities and attributes, but it's up here on this hill overlooking the water, and it has no flood insurance. This one does, and it has $45,000 worth of flood insurance. Then you've got, and it's sold for $10,000 less. Then the state would accept an adjustment. Did I explain it?
No, I understand what you're saying.
When I
This
worked
doesn't
in
make a lot
Holland, we
of
had the
sense.
sewer treatment plant. We never, people that lived by it, they either bought on it, or they didn't buy on it. There was no way I could ever pull a number out. Same thing as the dump or whatever else you have here that's a negative impact. I don't think that's all shaken out yet. And it'll take probably 3 to 5 years to know. Did you have something you were thinking about?
Yeah, I do.
Your insurance is going up?
Huh?
No, okay.
No. But
I can't as an assessor make that decision. It's based on sales. That's Prop 2.5 and equitable assessments. Because if both of you are on the water, she doesn't have a mortgage, she's not going to have to pay flood insurance. You're on the water, you have to carry a mortgage, you have to carry flood insurance.
the property value is not the same post-flood, within the zone and out of the zone.
We would need to prove that.
We'd have to prove it, yeah.
But you, yeah, that's what I'm saying. See,
I'm an
appraisal,
appraiser, yeah.
They won't go with an appraisal.
Yes, I look at appraisals all the time. I'm an appraiser, and I would be hard tasked to prove that flood insurance would impact your sale at this time. We don't have any sales yet.
All right, Tom, we're going to move
It's a big
along because that's not going to
discussion.
affect.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
okay.
I know where this is going. There'll be a lot more conversation
Yeah.
out in the future, but not now. I think we're
Thank you.
good here.
You're welcome to stop in and talk with me on it.
Be careful what you ask for, Tom.
Be careful what you
I
ask
said be
for us.
careful what you ask for. Tom will be right in there later on.
Well, I mean, it's a big question. I get calls.
Yep, all right, we're
Okay.
getting behind, so unless there's any other questions, I will thank you very much for your thorough
you.
presentation, and you answered my question, so I don't have to ask it. This is why we have you. Thank you very much.
We'll try to make it back while you guys.